LED technology is there. It's very readily available, and the cost is coming way down. A good thing about LED is if these were 40 feet up in the air, say in a gymnasium, and you had to periodically go in there and change lamps out, then LED suddenly becomes way more, it's a more viable option, because you don't ever, I mean, they're like 100,000 hour bulbs. They take years. You don't change the bulbs. You change the drivers, but even that's years and years and years. So you're looking at these sources indoors would be typical fluorescent, incandescent, LED. Outdoors, they can be any of those, and fluorescent can be linear or it could be compact fluorescent. The little squirrely, the curly LEDs, or just a straight pronged 2, 3, 4, whatever they're called, double twin tube, triple tube, quad tube, basically compact fluorescent that you've seen in a recessed downlight. And then outdoors, you would have fluorescent, LED, but outdoors typically you'd have what we call HID, which is high intensity discharge, and a good color for that, a good process would be the metal halide fixture. A lot of the old street lights and a lot of the parking lot lights, most of what you're looking at is a metal halide. It's 250 watt, 400 watt, sometimes 1,000 watt metal halides on the pole. They're big, screw in. They look similar to an incandescent, but they're much bigger and have a massive tungsten fuse in there. But even those are being replaced by LED now. So LED is, they're good. They're coming.
They're more expensive at the
They're
outset.
way more expensive, but it's getting there. It's,
They last long.
I haven't specified very much exterior lighting, but now I'm looking at a job where we're actually doing high bay fluorescent replacement with high bay LED. The fixture itself is $1,000, and they're putting about 200 of these in, so it's a big budget. But again, you won't have to go up and change anything on that fixture for years to come, and it'll give better light.
Must be nice.
Yes, sir. In this room, you either turn the lights off or on. Okay, so it's a switch on or switch off. You can dim these lights through a conventional dimmer. You'd have to change the ballast to what we call a dimmable ballast. It's more expensive, but it allows you to adjust the light level from full down to 5% or 10%, depending on the ballast that you put in there, 5% or 10%, which is pretty good. You dim this down to 5%, you don't think we're in the dark, but you can still see how to get out. In addition to regular wall-mounted dimmers, you can dim these with multiple level switching. You could like put this and this on one switch and this on the other switch, so you've got half the room or the other half. Or you could wire it such that you turn off every other section if they're wired that way, and they could be wired that way. It's a little trouble, but it's not unheard of. Where you could take two switches and turn half the lights off and half on, or back and forth. There is a way to take two switches and have 3 levels of light. Has anybody thought about that? We do it all the time. It's very, very, in a classroom like this or an office, if you have a 3-lamp fixture with 2 ballast and 2 switches, you can have 3 levels of light. One switch controls the center lamp. The other switch controls the 2 outer lamps. So you either have 1 on, or 2 on, or all 3 on. So if you're in there watching a movie or showing a demonstration of something, you can turn on the center lamp and it's subdued lighting. If you're doing something you need full light, throw both switches on and it's full bright. Okay. If it's in between, just have 2 lights on, 2 switches. A very useful thing that the architects give us sometimes, if they're good architects, is an RCP, reflected ceiling plan. The reflected ceiling plan is going to show me everything on the ceiling, so that there's a coordination between that diffuser and that light. These lights are suspended with aircraft cable, but a lot of times they're up in the ceiling, they're flush or recessed. Well, you can't put a recessed fixture right here because that's already taken. But typically we'll lay the lighting out and then we'll lay the diffusers out around it, and then any other thing like this quad receptacle was put in, but you can't obviously put that on over something else. So it's good to look at that and then decide how we're gonna make this work the best. Sometimes, for certain situations, lighting does shift a little bit to let a diffuser be there or return, because it's just gonna work better. What if there's a column there and you're gonna short circuit the airflow, push out directly back into that if you don't, so I separate them, and it's just a good tool. RCP, Reflected Ceiling Plant. Okay. Okay, any questions on indoor lighting? Any questions on switching, controls, indoor lighting, sources, anything else?
You know, were you gonna talk anything about the color of light?
Mhm.
Okay.
We can do that. You'll see, when you start to spec lighting, you'll see what they call a CRI, Color Rendering Index. The lower the number, normally, the softer, the more yellow the light. The higher the number, the more white the light, normally, or blue. You can go so high it seems blue. But it's what the owner wants, it's what the tenant wants, and you can, I recommend you guys go to lighting seminars, because they're gonna know a lot more about this than me. I'm just an engineer, I just hook it up. I just wire it. I just show you how to put the wires in there and we go with it. I'm okay with selecting lighting, but if it's a real complicated job, I send my jobs up to San Antonio to some friends of mine up there. They are professionals, and they show me, they not only lay out my photometrics, which I can do at home, but they do it quicker. And they also help me choose a color option. For a standard grid troffer with T8 lamps, I specify LP 735 and maybe a 41,000 K color temperature, or maybe 35,000. And you'll see degrees Kelvin, that's the heat of the lamp. And so the cooler the lamp, or the lower the number, the more yellow the light. The brighter, or the higher the number, the whiter the light. Sometimes you want a little bit of a yellow light. It's a softer atmosphere. In a restaurant, you may want that. But in an office, you may want to have as clear and as bright and as clean light as you can. I could go into that a little bit more, but
Well, if they have questions, I don't wanna hog the
anybody got any
questions.
questions on the?
It was about the dimming, like, what if, like, can we eventually dim this room, or it has to be when you're putting it up? Like, if we wanna install a
Oh,
dimmer?
you can install dimmers. You can do that after the fact. You can do retrofits. You can do renovation. Yes, but it's a matter of, make sure you always deal with the owner and tell the owner, the owner would be the one doing it. They would do that. But the way they would do it, I would think, the easiest way to do this would be multi-switching instead of.
We can do half of it now.
If you can do half of it, so it's already in a way full bright or half bright. So it's already that way partially, but yes, it can be done after the fact. It's always easier to do it up front. And I forgot to bring this up. When you're laying out electrical and you have floor boxes, you've seen things in the floor, like a receptacle in the floor that you plug in. Say a desk is sitting out in the middle of the floor, and instead of running the wire over there, you've got a plug right here in the floor. Well, if they did that while they, as they poured the foundation, if they set that back box and set that receptacle and ran that wire, that PVC conduit out to the source, and then poured concrete over it, it's much easier then, and then much cleaner. If they decide, well, we wanted to do that, then they get to saw cut a trench, and they get to core drill and put that box in, which is very expensive. So it's always better to do it up front, but we do retrofit jobs all the time. We do renovation, demolition, knock walls down, put new walls up, take out the old stuff, put the new stuff in. We do a lot of that, a lot of work like that.
In the long run though, if you were to cover it up in cement and let's just say there's an electrical fire that short circuited all the, I don't know, like worst case scenario kind of deal, would you have to like dig into that concrete just to go ahead and rewire it, or?
What they would probably, if there was a wire in that conduit,
Yes.
if they caught fire, what they would probably do, if it didn't sever it, they would probably tile one in and use that as a pull cord and pull new wire through. If you remove all the old and put the new in that's got a plastic jacket, THHN insulation, THWN, whatever it is, it's basically thermoplastic insulation. If you can get that in there without damaging it, then you're good to go. That would be the easiest way to do it.
Would you put the
If it's
concrete-
catastrophic and it melted everything, then, you know, you might as well just go go another direction. Just leave that in there and cap it off, disconnect the source and say, yeah, that was there. We're gonna do a new one over here.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, outdoor lighting, pole mounted, parking lot lighting. You've got, typically down here, you've got metal poles on a concrete base. Well, you have to bolt that concrete, or that metal pole into that concrete base. So you got a bolt pattern, and you've got certain bolts that you want to pour into that concrete base as you pour it. If you forget to do that, you can still drill it out and epoxy in bolts, and it's just as good. Another method is direct burial poles, and those would be concrete poles normally. Rebar reinforced concrete poles that you stick right in the ground. Keep in mind that if it's a 20-foot pole, that say you want 20 feet above grade, but you know that you got to bury 8 feet of the pole, so you'll need to order a 28-foot pole. Put 8 feet of it in the ground. Again, you want to verify this with a structural engineer. This is a windstorm zone of 120 miles an hour. Another consideration is when you put a shoebox, we call them shoeboxes, up on that pole, a shoebox fixture, which is a rectangular block. It's got what we call an EPA, effective projected area. Well, at 120 miles an hour, effective projected area of that fixture, if it exceeds the pole strength, then it's going to lay the pole over or rip the fixture off the pole. For multiple heads, you have to multiply those. If you've got an EPA of 2.5 square feet, and then you've got 3 poles, then 2.5 times 3, 7.5 all of a sudden. Well, the poles that we specify have got an EPA that they're good for at 100 miles an hour or 120 miles an hour in your lighting catalog. So you want your EPA of your pole to exceed the EPA total of the light fixtures. That's something that architects never do this, but it's something for you to just be aware of. But if the you know, a 90 mile an hour wind comes in and your poles are laying down, you want to start asking your electrical engineer, why'd you do that to me? No, they should stand. Most of the stuff you see here is metal poles, and you can get a straight square steel pole or a tapered square steel pole, a round straight pole, round tapered pole. Tapered means it's big here and it tapers up and gets small at the top. It looks good, it works good. The way you attach these fixtures to the light pole is very critical. You want it to all be rated for the EPA of that device at that point. Now these pole mounted fixtures are typically what we call area lighting. They're just lighting the parking lot. But if you've gone to a Walmart lately, you'll see, well, it's got area lighting, but then on top of that, it's got a flood shining on Walmart. You can do that. You can flood that building facade from that pole. Well, when you do that, that greatly affects the EPA because those floods are massive. And those poles, what it boils down to is they have to be thicker metal, and they have to have better bolts, more bolts, stronger bolts to attach it. Again, most of these sources are metal halide, which ranges from 250 watts to 400 to 1,000 watts. I've seen some that are like 1,200 watts. When you get to a parking lot of a car dealer, they're very particular about how they light their cars up at night because that's how they make money, and they want it to be bright. And so I've done some car lots, and they're very picky on what they want. So I brighten it really bright, and they're happy. Everybody's happy, but it costs a lot of money.
Is there like a particular type of metal that they use, or?
Metal halide is the process of, I think that's what you see in a light bulb.
Mm-hmm.
Metal halide is actually a gas, but it's got a filament in there, and it ignites. It's a high intensity discharge is the type of fixture it is. Metal halide, high pressure sodium. There are different ones that work with a gas. So, and fluorescence is a gas, by the way. So it's the same principle. It ignites that gas within that enclosed atmosphere, and it gets really bright. But
And what about in like, I guess the actual metal post? Like, is there any special